7 years on, we now know that there's a lot more to it than just closing out the signal from a mobile phone mast. That helps, and it's a start, and it's something everybody should try and do. But there is a lot more to it. But having said that, where the people were in what we call the beam of maximum intensity, that's the point that a mobile phone mast antenna breaks ground. That's extremely dangerous and extremely debilitating. So where we removed that, then the results would be fairly instant. People would feel better, headaches would go, sleep would improve, appetites would come back, energy would come back, mental state of mind, all sorts of stuff. The classic in our first effort, which again got in the media, the chap that introduced me to the subject when I went in with my daughter Hannah, the reason he knew so much about it was that he lived under the beam of maximum intensity of a mobile phone mast, and him and his wife had had a little child, and the child at the time that I met them was 9 months old and was effectively dying. He was not putting any weight on, well, probably not at the time I met him, but at the time they started to take action, he'd been effectively dying. From the moment he was born, virtually 24/7 he would scream, and he wouldn't keep food down, and he wasn't putting any weight on. And they noticed that when they took him away on a caravan holiday, I think it was to Crickeath in Wales, that he stopped screaming. They had no idea about mobile phone masts or anything like that. But they knew when they went back to the home, he started screaming again. They lived in Southport, and so they had a family of 5 in total, including themselves. But they took a touring caravan and put it on the Riverside caravan park just outside of the town, which was free of, in those days, probably isn't now, but in those days was free of intrusion from mobile phone masts. And the little baby instantly started to get better, and within, I think it was 14 days, he put on 10 ounces, when prior to that the health authorities had been investigating these guys in a sort of friendly way, concerned about whether their parenting skills were going to lead to the child's death. So that was one.
So what does it actually do to your health then?
Well, nobody's 100% sure. One of the things we're pretty sure about is that the brain sees the microwave radiation frequency from a mobile phone mast as a form of bright light. So while the eyes don't see it, the brain does. So because of that, you can never, somebody who's living in the beam of this, or even in a low form of it, can never go into deep REM sleep. So they don't get to that point where melatonin is produced, which does a number of things. It refreshes the immune system, but it also suppresses cancer. So you've got 3 things going on. You've got immune system not getting refreshed, potential cancer not getting stopped, and of course via the lack of proper sleep you're going to get fatigue, you're going to get headaches, you're going to get nauseous, and all of these things we see in people that are living under the beam of a mobile phone mast. That's a fairly, we're all pretty certain about that, and all the scientists around the world, that it's all unfunded research but are doing the research, are pretty much in agreement about that. A more recent discovery, and one of my pet interests, is the actual cellular system of the body, ironically given the name of the cellular phones as they originally were called and still are in the States. But the cellular system of our body communicates with each other via a very, very tiny antenna using a very, very weak form of radiation, or a very, very weak communication signal. When the cells see or receive a strong radiation or telecommunication signal, they see that as a form of attack. They communicate with each other and they shut down, so that they don't expel waste or receive nutrient in a normal way. They have to do some for you to continue to live, but they don't. They do it in a form of, we're at war. So the whole cellular system within the body becomes burdened.
Compromised.
Yeah, and that's what we think we're seeing when we get a person who's actually electrically sensitive or electrically hypersensitive, and over a period of time it will manifest itself as ME, chronic fatigue syndrome, but in what I'm getting to is that the medical profession is not really aware of it yet, so people are turning up at the doctors and being diagnosed with, in my opinion, the wrong diseases. It could even go as far as MS and worse than that, we don't know.
So you talk about mobile phone masts. What other sort of technology problems are there?
Well, when I got involved in it in 2004, it was almost well, not almost solely, but principally mobile phone masts. And most people could accept that, excuse me, quite easily. What was a little bit more difficult for people to accept was the cordless phone. We were in the days really of pre-domestic wireless networks. They were around, but very limited. So the only two main ones in those days were the mobile phone mast, and everybody sort of said, oh yeah, I can see that that's a problem, because you look at one and it's a big dirty horrible thing and it doesn't look like it's doing you any good. But when you talk to people about cordless phones, then that isn't as easily accepted, but it's the same thing. If you think about what we just talked about with the cellular system communicating with a very weak radio signal, you know, a cordless phone in comparison to that is a big giant signal. So that can create, in fact in many cases, a cordless phone is much more serious than the nearest phone mast, because unless you've got one very nearby, as we discussed earlier, which is right in your face, so to speak, the signals from them are not always that strong, and we actually find more people suffering from cordless phones than we do from digital cordless phones than we do from masts. And examples of people with that, when you remove them, headaches go, sleep comes back, and we don't have to do any complicated shielding. You know, where you can find somebody who's living out in a great rural place with no phone mast, nothing horrible, no electricity pylons. Go and see them, and they're in a dreadful state of health. Throw the cordless phone out, and they feel fine.